2 times length times width plus 2 length times height plus 2 height times width. Okay, but you're asking to solve it for the h value. So in order to do that, what you need to do is you need to isolate the terms that contain h. So here's the 2 terms that have h in them. So we're going to subtract this 2lw from both sides and leave the 2lh plus 2hw alone on the right. Okay, now, the way that you remove or isolate a factor from multiple terms is you remove it as a factor. Okay, so if we factor out the h here, so even though there's other, like we could factor out a 2 as well, we're not trying to isolate the 2. So we'll leave that inside and just remove the h. When we do that, we're left with 2l plus 2w. And on the right, it stays exactly as it was. And now you can undo any operations being performed on h. So we can divide both sides here by 2l plus 2w. And when we do that, we get our solution for our answer. Okay, now, if you're going to use the solve feature of your TI-89, you want to be careful with something here. Okay, and that is, if you were to type this in F2 Algebra tab, access the solve feature, and you type the original equation. So I'll use the variables that they have. So S equals 2LW plus 2LH plus 2HW. And we want to solve for, in this case, we're solving for H. And the way that your calculator sets that up is comma H tells it what you want it to solve for. Okay? The problem with TI-89 is it does not understand that each of those variables represents a different variable from one another. Okay? It thinks that you're labeling one variable LW, one variable LH, and one HW. It doesn't distinguish the individual factors. And so if you are going to use your TI-89, when you put variable to variable multiplication, you need to explicitly multiply. Okay, so if you go in and in between any 2 variables that you want to multiply, you have to explicitly multiply those. Now, the calculator understands that 2L means 2 times L. So if you go number and then variable, it understands that that's implied multiplication. But if it starts with the variable and then either a number or another variable, it just thinks that's part of the label itself. So once I get to this step, I can hit enter. I've explicitly multiplied, and I see I have S minus 2LW all over 2 times W plus L, which is just the factored form of this answer. All right. The second problem in solving for R is going to require taking roots. So if we want to isolate the R, we first need to get it alone on one side, and we do that by undoing all the operations. So I'm going to undo the 4/3 by multiplying by the reciprocal. So 3 over 4. Those cancel. And then I can undo the pi by dividing both sides by pi. Those cancel. So what I wind up with here is I have 3v over 4 pi is equal to r cubed. And then the final step to completely isolate the r is to undo its power. And you can undo the power one of 2 ways. You can use a root to undo it. So we could take the cube root of both sides. Okay. So here when we're entering our answer on this, we could enter this as root. Our index is 3. And then inside we have 3v divided by, we would need to put 4 pi in parentheses, and pi would be pi for that. But that would be your entry. Okay, but you can also solve this by using reciprocal powers. So we can take both sides of this to the power of 1/3. Okay, so we could have also entered our answer as the quantity 3v divided by, again, 4 pi in the denominator to the power of 1/3, and that would give you the correct answer as well.